After dozens of large-scale missile and drone attacks on energy infrastructure this year, Ukraine is facing the prospect of its power grid shutting down by 50% to 70% this winter. Rotating blackouts are expected to continue for several months, with some energy experts predicting that the grid could be offline for up to 20 hours a day in many regions. Power outages harm industrial production, household heating, and clean water supply. After 3 years of Russian airstrikes, Ukraine is increasingly reliant on energy sources from outside the country. Slovakia is one of the nations providing such humanitarian aid. From January to November this year, Slovakia exported 2.4 million megawatt-hours of electricity, a 152% increase compared to the previous year. They also supply about 5% of Ukraine's total diesel fuel, crucial for military vehicles and generators. This agreement is reciprocal, with Kyiv pledging not to interfere with Russian gas transiting through Ukraine to Slovakia. Although Slovakia has maintained a neutral stance in the war, Ukraine and the European Union have recently accused Slovakia's leadership of becoming too friendly with Vladimir Putin. As a result, President Zelenskyy plans to shut down the Russian gas pipeline to Slovakia on January 1st. Prime Minister Robert Fico said NATO is turning him into a demon. As the war continues, and Ukraine loses more territory to Russia, Slovakia's neutrality is increasingly seen as a betrayal by Ukraine and its Western partners. However, the accusations and pressure tactics against Slovakia have had the opposite effect. Prime Minister Fico made a surprise visit to the Kremlin to meet President Putin to secure energy security for his country. After Christmas, Slovakia announced its intention to cut all backup energy supplies to Ukraine, including electricity and diesel. It is worth noting that Ukrainian officials had previously stated that losing electricity supplies from countries like Slovakia and Hungary would not affect their power grid. However, Russian attacks have so severely damaged Ukraine's energy infrastructure that it is now beyond recovery, and it is clear that Kyiv needs every watt of power it can get. Slovakia halting its electricity supply could also inspire other countries with neutral stances toward Ukraine and Russia to align more closely with the Kremlin. After Prime Minister Fico visited Russia, President Putin said he would accept Slovakia's latest proposal to act as a peace negotiation venue with Ukraine. The EU criticized Prime Minister Fico's trip to Moscow as a blow to the unity of the EU bloc against Russia's invasion. On December 27th, just a few days before the new year, and the deadline for President Zelenskyy to cut off gas supplies to Slovakia, Prime Minister Robert Fico escalated tensions as he continued to announce that, if it becomes unavoidable, we will stop supplying electricity, which Ukraine desperately needs in case the power grid fails. A day later, on December 28th, President Zelenskyy responded to Prime Minister Fico by accusing Slovakia, a NATO and EU member, of opening a second energy front against Ukraine under Moscow's orders. It seems that Putin has ordered Fico to open a second energy front against Ukraine, harming the interests of the Slovak people, and Fico's threats to cut off Ukraine's emergency electricity supply this winter while Russia attacks our power plants and grids can only be explained by this. At the same time, Zelenskyy accused President Putin of dragging Slovakia into efforts to inflict more suffering on the Ukrainian people. As Russia's aerial attacks on Ukraine's power grid worsened, Ukraine was forced to rely on importing electricity from neighboring countries to survive. President Zelenskyy pointed out that Slovakia currently accounts for 19% of Ukraine's electricity imports, a significant portion and a critical leverage for Slovakia. Ukrainian officials have long criticized Prime Minister Fico for his consistent opposition to Ukraine joining NATO, much like Viktor Orban of Hungary. It was just 2 months ago that Fico declared, "As long as I am the Prime Minister of the Slovak Republic, as long as I lead the deputies, whom I, as the party chairman, have under political control, I will never agree to Ukraine's membership in NATO." On December 26, President Putin of Russia stated that no new agreement had been reached for gas transportation between Russia and Ukraine. The failure to reach an agreement, he said, was entirely Ukraine's fault. To date, the Kyiv government has refused to extend the gas transit agreement to Austria, the Czech Republic, and Slovakia, and this refusal, according to Putin, is only harming Europe. The current gas transit agreement, which began nearly 5 years ago, is set to expire at the end of 2024. Without a New Deal, it will cause significant difficulties for several European countries. According to Putin, the few remaining days in the year are not enough for both sides to reach a new deal, adding that Russia is ready to supply gas to Europe via Poland through the Yamal-Europe pipeline. European gas prices surged following this information. All these developments are part of a broader, systematic effort to cripple the Russian economy in the long term, increase the cost of the war as much as possible, and provoke dissatisfaction within Russian society towards President Putin's government. However, according to a recent report from the Financial Times, Trump could quickly end all of this. The article stated, Trump's transactional nature, his determination to avoid war, and his contempt for democratic allies leads the U.S. to strike a new grand bargain with Russia and China. The U.S. tacitly grants Russia and China spheres of influence in their regions. America concentrates on asserting dominance in its own region, pushing around Mexico and Canada, and seeking to take back the Panama Canal and gain control over Greenland. Trump forces a peace deal on Ukraine without accompanying security guarantees. Sanctions against Russia are relaxed, and Putin is welcome to Thanksgiving dinner at Mar-a-Lago. The Financial Times assessment provides another explanation for why the Kremlin may choose a cautious response. Putin sees that Ukraine could collapse faster without the need for shocking and horrific retaliatory measures. Another important point is that the Financial Times, as a mainstream media outlet, is closely aligned with the Democratic Party and the globalist elite. Commentators from this platform, as well as many mainstream media outlets in the US and Europe, continue to view Trump as an extremist nationalist, determined to destroy the global liberal agenda. The Financial Times wrote, the inauguration of Donald Trump as President of the U.S. will take place on January 20th, the same day as the opening of the World Economic Forum in Davos. Since the end of the Cold War, the annual Davos meeting, which brings together business and political leaders from all over the world, has become a symbol of elite-driven globalization. But Trump is a sworn enemy of what he calls globalism. Davos goers promote free trade. Trump says that tariff is his favorite word. The WEF hosts innumerable forums about international cooperation. Trump believes in America First nationalism. Trump is poised to contest almost every element of the liberal international order: trade, alliances, migration, multilateralism, solidarity between democracies, human rights. What is noteworthy is that this very outlet has concluded that, at times, Putin and Trump sound like they are reading from the same anti-Woking sheet. In his Sochi speech, the Russian leader defined his enemy as liberal and globalist messianism, sentiments that Trump could easily have echoed. The quote just now has concluded today's program. What do you think about the relationship between Trump and Putin? Please leave your comments below.